Hey everyone, I'm Mariana and it is monthly wrap-up time again. How is it June already? I have no idea where May went. Today I am talking about everything I watched in May, and I will be doing a separate wrap-up for my reading, as I often do. If you're watching this a few days after I posted it, I probably have the link to that in the info box below, along with any other videos that I mention. But let's get started with the TV series. Netflix has really been my friend in May when it comes to TV series, and the first thing I want to talk about is Evil Genius, which is a 4-part true crime docuseries about the 2003 pizza bomber case that involved a very odd bank heist and a collar bomb. To be honest, I did not remember anything about this case or even the fact that it existed. Even though it obviously was all over the news back in the day, somehow I missed it entirely. So this whole thing was completely new to me. I had no idea where this was going. I think for anyone who is interested in true crime, a mini docuseries like this would be pretty much a must watch. It is done pretty well and it is very easy to binge because, like I said, it's only 4 episodes. I did think that it started off strong, but towards the middle it definitely had some parts that were slower and it did get repetitive on a few occasions. So overall, I would probably give it 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I definitely enjoyed it and I learned a lot, and I love the interviews that they do in this documentary. The interviews with Marjorie are just... there's something else. Another docuseries that I watched, and this one I actually loved and would highly recommend, is Wild Wild Country. This is about an Indian guru and his charismatic personal assistant. The two of them have built up a community of followers and established their own town and commune in Oregon in 1980s. I thought this was fascinating, and a series like this is just perfect for anyone who is interested in cults, their leaders, how all of that situation develops. This escalates into all kinds of crazy once the community starts clashing with the local residents. I do have to say, and those of you who have seen this series, let me know if you felt the same way, but I didn't really feel like taking sides in this situation because it's not like the locals were the nicest people ever. Obviously, once the tensions started growing, the commune did some very questionable things, to say the least. However, the local people were just so judgmental right away and not welcoming or accepting at all. So I can't really say that I was rooting for these small town people of Oregon who lived next door. And from the interviews that were recent and from the interviews from the 80s, they just seemed kind of like jerks. Anyways, as I said, I highly recommend this. I thought this was done really well, and I would probably rate it either 4.5 or even 5 out of 5 stars. The last series that I watched, or rather attempted to watch, was season 2 of 13 Reasons Why. I only got through the first 3 or 4 episodes and I had to quit. I thought it was pretty bad. I was initially skeptical when they said they were going to do a season 2. I felt like the story wrapped up and we didn't need a second season, and I actually enjoyed the first season. I know there are people who had problems with it and I understand where they're coming from. I thought it was good. However, this second season, from what I've watched, obviously I didn't finish it, but I've had enough, seemed like the perfect example of continuing a series without there being a need for it. I initially thought that I might find this interesting because I heard that it was more of a procedural type of show, but that didn't really work for me. I thought the way that they decided to bring Hannah back into the show was super awkward and weird. And the acting, I don't know if the acting was better in the first season or if I was just very invested in the story and didn't notice, but this time around the acting seemed to be very uneven, to say the least. Anyways, If you enjoyed the show, that's great. Let me know if you did. Let me know if it gets better and for some reason I need to watch it further. I doubt I will though, because no, I kind of hated it. So that's it for the series that I watched. Let's move on to all of the movies that I watched. I actually ended up watching quite a few, so let's take a look at my Letterboxd. As always, if you don't follow me there, I'm Impression Blend. First up, I rewatched The World's End, which is the third film in the Edgar Wright Cornetto trilogy. I know some people aren't really fans of the genre switch in this one. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but the movie starts off as one thing and then kind of goes crazy into a completely different genre. I personally really enjoy that though, and I really like Edgar Wright's humor and the way he films his movies, so I am a fan of this. This is a solid 4 out of 5 for me, and even though it's not my favorite of the trilogy, it's definitely a movie I enjoy and I think it's pretty hilarious. Then another rewatch for me, The Fly. This is a classic sci-fi body horror film. If you haven't seen The Fly, you absolutely have to, even if you're not a horror fan, because it's just a really good movie, and it's been more than 30 years and it still holds up perfectly. Also starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, and they are excellent. If you don't know what it's basically about this guy who invents a teleporting device, but then when he goes in to test it himself, a fly gets in and he gets spliced with this fly into one being, and then a lot of body stuff ensues that is not very pleasant, and it all looks really, really gross and really, really good because they used practical effects, and it definitely holds up. What's also nice about this is that there's more to the story than just the body horror, and it's actually quite a sad story, so there is a nice balance between the sci-fi horror and the drama. Basically, I love this movie. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I will watch it again at some point. Then I watched The Invisible Guest, which is a Spanish thriller, and it is a really good Spanish thriller. The actual title of this translates into Setback, which is a much better title and fits the movie so much better than The Invisible Guest. The premise of this seems like something you have seen 100 times before, especially if you watch a lot of thrillers. It's about a guy who is being investigated for a murder that he claims he didn't commit. He has to talk to his lawyer and come clean about everything, and then twists and turns ensue. And yes, for a large portion of this film, it does seem like something you've seen before, done in various ways. However, believe me, there are so many awesome twists and turns here towards the end. You think you know where it's going, and then it's not going there, and then it's kind of going there, and then it's going a third way. It's worth watching. I definitely recommend it. This is on Netflix, by the way. A solid 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Martyrs, which I actually did a video on. It is a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen Martyrs, you need to watch the movie before watching my video because I spoil things, but yeah, that movie was something else, and you can watch my video for more details because it took me a while to process it, and I think I'm still processing this film. It's unlike anything I've seen. It's definitely emotionally draining and traumatizing. After that, I watched Shimmer Lake, which is a Netflix original, and this is a crime thriller told in reverse. Pretty much hated it. Cannot recommend it to anyone. This was no. Just stop it. Then I watched Before I Wake, which is a horror fantasy kind of film about a couple who adopt a kid, Jacob Tremblay, by the way, and he is the main reason I watched this because he was so good in Room. Anyways, this couple adopts this kid, and his dreams actually manifest in real life. It's quite a sad story. I'm not going to lie. I thought the actual plot of the movie was pretty good, but it is ruined by these jump scares and the horrible CGI, and unfortunately, I just couldn't give it anything more than 3 out of 5 stars. It's worth watching once, in my opinion, because of the story, but Not a great film. Could have been a lot better. Then I watched Clown, which was a pretty cool take on the whole killer clown thing. I am not someone who is scared of clowns, so I didn't really think this was going to do much for me, but they take the kind of demonic route here, and it actually is quite unsettling, and overall I would say this is a solid horror film. I wish the acting was better because some of this acting is pretty rough, and that was probably the worst thing about the film, as well as some of the dialogue and horror movie logic is just... it's there. It could have been better. But yeah, 3.5 out of 5 stars. After that, surprise of the year, I finally watched Black Panther. Pretty sure I'm the last person to watch this movie. And I really liked it. I, once again, actually liked it more than I thought I would. It's definitely one of the better Marvel films, especially one of the better origins stories. I'm not going to tell you anything you haven't heard about this movie yet. I mean, Killmonger is an awesome villain. The setting is interesting. There are some cool characters. Some of the CGI is surprisingly disappointing. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And before everyone starts asking me, no, I have not seen Deadpool 2 or Infinity War. I'm not on the superhero train anymore. I watch these movies when they come out on VOD, but yeah, so don't expect reviews for those anytime soon. Black Panther though, 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I saw Cargo, which is a zombie survival drama. It's definitely not one of those regular action zombie horror movies. It's much more in the vein of The Walking Dead. This one I don't think is a Netflix original, but it's being released on Netflix, which is where I watched it. And Martin Freeman just does a fantastic job as the lead character here. He has a very powerful and heartbreaking performance. It is not a perfect film by any means. It's actually quite a slow burn, so it's not going to be for everyone, but I would recommend it to those who are fans of the Walking Dead type of zombie storytelling rather than your regular brain-eating type of zombie storytelling. I definitely enjoyed it, so I did end up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I finally watched Almost Famous. Can you guys believe that it took me this long to watch this movie? I've never seen it before, and of course I loved it. I knew I was going to love it, but it still managed to surprise me because of how much heart this movie had. Obviously, it has a fantastic cast. It is a wonderful coming-of-age story, and it is one of the best music-related films out there, at least from what I've seen, but it was even better than I thought it was going to be. Loved it. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I decided to watch The Hitcher, which completely disappointed me. Rutger Hauer's performance is wonderful. I love Rutger Hauer as much as anyone else, and as a stalker, he is just so creepy. But the rest of this film, I do not get the cult status of this movie because it's not good. It has nothing to offer except for Rutger Hauer's performance, so I ended up giving it 2.5 out of 5 stars, and I am just confused why so many people recommend this one. Another movie I would not recommend is Afflicted, which is essentially an 85-minute long vlog about a dude turning into a vampire. I think maybe if you are into the found footage subgenre, you will find this interesting. I am not into it, so I thought it fell into most of the pitfalls that the found footage movies fall into, and I didn't really enjoy it, so 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then things got even worse because I watched Red State. I just don't get along with Kevin Smith and his horror films. I didn't enjoy this at all. I thought this was strange and not in a good way. So I personally would not recommend it, but maybe if you are a Kevin Smith fan, you would enjoy this. I'm not even sure this qualifies as horror because it starts off as this kind of teen comedy with guys being jerks, then it turns into a violent action movie with a lot of blood and a lot of shaky cam, and then the ending just kind of trolls you. So that's the movie. After all of that, I was in desperate need of rewatching some favorites. I started with Dunkirk, which is a film I really loved from last year. I saw it twice in theaters, once in IMAX, the other time in just a regular showing, and this is my third viewing at home on the small screen. I'm here to report this movie is still freaking excellent. I still love it. If you haven't seen my review, I will link it down below. Then I also decided to rewatch 28 Days Later, which is a Danny Boyle zombie film. I know he says this is not zombies, but they're zombies. I did not remember that much of this movie because it's been about 10 years since I've seen it, but it is excellent. It's also kind of fun to go back and see how many things from this movie are now staples in the zombie genre. But yeah, this is great. If you somehow haven't seen this and you love zombies, don't know how that would have happened, but watch it. Then I watched Stand By Me, which is another movie from the I can't believe it took me so long to watch this list, and it is, surprise, surprise, really, really, really good. I personally thought that this was one of the most accurate portrayals of childhood and friendship ever put on film. I can tell you that I will definitely be watching this again at some point, and I really enjoyed it. It was funny, it felt nostalgic, even though I've never seen this before. It was just a really perfect film to watch on a hot summer day, and it actually really made me want to read the short story that this is based on. A very, very solid 4 out of 5 stars. Then I tried to watch The Crazies again. This is the remake, not the original. I've also tried to watch the original, just couldn't get into it. And The Crazies, the 2010 version, I've tried to watch it once before, couldn't get into it, watched about 30 minutes of it, turned it off. This time made it a bit further. I think I had about 40 minutes left of this film. I just don't care. This movie just doesn't do it for me. I rarely don't finish a film, but I can't do it. It just doesn't hold my interest at all. Then I decided to give Tourist Trap a try, which is a classic slasher from the late 70s, and these movies are just way too dated and too cheesy and too overacted for me. There are some exceptions that I do enjoy. Older horror films that, despite their datedness, are still excellent films in my opinion. This was just not one of them. The concept overall is pretty good, and I can see how this could have been creepy back in the day, and if you are uncomfortable with dolls and mannequins, maybe this will do it for you, but no. 2.5 out of 5 stars. Average, dated, classic slasher. Last but certainly not least, I watched The Tale, which is out on HBO right now. This just came out recently, and this is about a woman who is faced with re-examining her memories of her early teenage years and the sexual relationship that she had with a much older guy. It is so unsettling and heartbreaking and disturbing. It's a very powerful film with some excellent performances, particularly from Laura Dern. She is fantastic in this, one of her best roles, and I would definitely recommend watching this. Just be aware what you're getting into, because this is, once again, very disturbing. They do not shy away from things here, and thankfully they do give you a disclaimer that this was done with a body double, but still, some of these scenes. It feels really weird rating movies like this because this is a true story, and it is the story of the woman who wrote and directed this film, and I sincerely hope she is doing better now, because this is messed up. But I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a really, really good movie. And I'm not trying to rate anybody's life story. I just want to put that out there. And that's it for this first part of my May wrap up. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to my channel, consider supporting me on Patreon, and don't forget to turn on your notifications so you don't miss my future videos. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye!